30 armored vehicles pushing through a blizzard, engines roaring, tracks grinding through frozen mud, and then total destruction. Tonight, we are bringing you exclusive coverage of what Ukrainian commanders are calling the largest mechanized assault inside Pokrovsk since this brutal siege began. Russian forces launched their biggest armored push yet, and it ended in catastrophic failure. What does this mean for the war? Why should you care? The answers may reshape everything we know about this conflict. It happened in the dead of winter, when thick sheets of wet snow swallowed every sound and blinded every camera. A column of roughly 30 Russian vehicles, a mix of armored personnel carriers, trucks, and even motorcycles, pushed through the southern approaches of Pokrovsk. This was not a probing attack. This was not a quick test of Ukrainian defenses. This was a full-scale mechanized thrust aimed at breaking through to the northern part of the city. Ukrainian forces from the 7th Rapid Response Corps were waiting. They had spent months transforming this supply town into an urban fortress. Every street had become a firing lane. Every intersection had become a kill zone. And when those Russian vehicles rolled in, the trap was sprung. The ground itself turned against the attackers. Mud grabbed at steel tracks. Snow blinded optical systems. And then the drones came. Loitering munitions found warm engines glowing against the frozen landscape. FPV drones buzzed like wasps through the sleet. One by one, the vehicles stopped moving. By nightfall, the fields around Pokrovsk were dotted with burning wrecks and black smoke rising against white snow. But understanding why this matters requires understanding what Pokrovsk actually represents. This city sits at the intersection of critical rail lines and road networks that feed the entire Eastern Front. It connects to Kramatorsk and Sloviansk in the north. It links to Kostiantynivka and the fortress belt to the east. And it opens westward toward the gateways of Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. Before this siege tightened its grip, Pokrovsk moved fuel, ammunition, and personnel across entire sectors. Medics, engineers, sappers, all the unglamorous traffic that actually wins wars flowed through this junction. Capturing it would not just plant a Russian flag on another ruined city. It would give Moscow a staging ground to pivot north or punch into the lighter, flatter terrain to the west. Military analysts have called Pokrovsk a pressure point on the entire Eastern Front. This is not just another battle for another block of ruins. This is a fight for the logistics backbone of Ukrainian resistance in the Donbass. And that is exactly why today's assault felt so dramatically different from anything we have seen in months. For most of this conflict, Russian forces have relied on wave tactics and small assault groups. They infiltrated through seams between trenches and tree lines. They preserved their armor for moments when the odds looked friendlier. Today, they threw that playbook out the window. 30 vehicles pushed directly into an urban environment fortified for months. The 7th Rapid Response Corps told reporters that previous attacks used just 1 or 2 vehicles to shepherd infantry forward. Today was a dramatic spike in aggression, a bold attempt to force through the defenses. The lock held. What comes next could determine the fate of the entire region. Winter on the Ukrainian steppe is a shapeshifter. One day, the ground freezes solid and becomes a highway for heavy vehicles. The next day, it transforms into endless porridge that swallows tracks and tires alike. The old military saying applies perfectly here. Amateurs study tactics, professionals study logistics, and the truly prepared commanders keep a weather app open at all times. When you roll heavy armor into a place like Pokrovsk in the middle of winter, you are gambling against nature itself. Drones thrive in low ceiling conditions. Heat signatures from engines glow bright against cold snow. Poorly drained ground turns columns into choke points, and choke points into graveyards. The footage from today tells the whole brutal story. Stalled vehicles, burning chassis, soldiers sprinting through sleet while quadcopters hunted them from above. It was a live demonstration of how winter punishes mass movement. If you're finding this coverage valuable, take a moment to hit that subscribe button and like this video. Your support helps us bring you detailed analysis like this every single day. Now let me tell you why this battle matters far beyond the battlefield itself. This clash did not happen in a vacuum. It unfolded as pressure mounted on Kyiv to consider peace frameworks that many view as favorable to Moscow. That timing is absolutely not coincidental. A city like Pokrovsk is not just a battlefield, it is a bargaining chip in the highest stakes negotiations of our time. If Russia can claim Pokrovsk cleanly, its negotiators walk into any room and declare the map is shifting their way. If Ukraine holds, if it trades ground in alleys for attrition on the approaches, then Kyiv makes its own case. Look at the cost of every block. Look at the price Moscow is paying to advance a single kilometer. The fighting on these streets echoes directly into conference rooms where diplomats count provinces like poker chips. Moscow claimed weeks ago that this city had fallen. Kyiv responded with coordinates and unit positions still operating in the northern sector. The truth lies somewhere in the chaos of combat. But what we do know for certain is that Ukrainian troops are still fighting inside this city tonight. That fact alone tells you everything about the ferocity of this remarkable defense. Understanding what happened today requires understanding how Ukraine has transformed Pokrovsk into something far more dangerous than an ordinary urban area. Think of the city as concentric shells of defense. The outermost shell is observation. Drones and spotters watch for any movement, any heat signature breaking the winter monotone. Inside that shell sits precision fire. Mortars, guided shells, and roving teams carrying anti-armor missiles wait for targets. Inside that sits the hedgehog, fortified positions in blasted buildings with overlapping fields of fire down every alley. Rubble and rebar have become furniture in these urban ambush points. To break through that geometry, attackers need speed, synchronization, and electronic warfare capable of blinding the eyes above. Today, Russian forces had none of those advantages. Every culvert, every intersection, every building has been mapped, measured, and prepared for exactly this kind of assault. If Pokrovsk falls, and that remains a genuine possibility, it would be the most consequential change to the map in nearly 2 years. Some analysts call it the largest city Russia would have seized since Bakhmut. Others point to Avdiivka as the better comparison. Either way, capturing this city would represent a qualitative shift, not just another notch on the scoreboard. The fall of Pokrovsk would pressure Kramatorsk and Sloviansk to the north. It would open angles into Dnipropetrovsk Oblast to the west. It would shorten Russian supply lines and extend Ukrainian ones. The mathematics of truck tonnage per day, the geometry of rail connections, the brutal calculus of modern logistics, all of it runs through this city. And that is precisely why neither side can afford to lose here. There is also Mernograd to consider. Pokrovsk's neighbor in this grinding urban warfare. Russian commanders have called it out by name, talking up encirclements and orders to finish the job. If you tighten the loop around Mernograd while battering Pokrovsk, you squeeze Ukrainian supply routes from 2 directions. It is a classic military maneuver, playing out under the same gray skies and over the same cratered roads. So what happens next? Expect another push. Maybe not with 30 vehicles, maybe with fewer and under heavier electronic jamming, probing the same avenues while artillery tries to plow new lanes through the rubble. Expect more smoke screens, more night attacks, more desperate attempts to slip through undetected. Expect Ukrainian units to flex and then bite, yielding where a street is not worth the blood, counterpunching where they can turn a traffic circle into a trap, and expect the information war to intensify. Claims of capture, counterclaims of presence, each side trying to move the political needle while the tactical situation inches forward, meter by bloody meter. Street fighting consumes lives in both directions. The Russian military has shown a willingness to trade bodies for territory. The Ukrainian military, fighting on home ground with a thinner demographic base, is forced to fight smarter, striking where it can impose disproportionate losses and refusing engagements where the odds tilt wrong. Today's result fits that operating logic perfectly. A repelled assault, vehicles stuck and burning, the enemy paying in steel before defenders have to pay in blood. For the civilians who once caught the morning train to Kramatorsk, this is all an abstraction now. Their city has become a maze of basements and checkpoints. History has a brutal lesson for moments like this. When massed armor meets prepared urban defense, the city tends to win slowly, expensively, in horrible increments. Tanks were built for open ground. Cities are deadly ambush machines carved in brick. So where does this leave us tonight? with a city that still fights, with attackers who learned again that mass movement inside urban terrain requires more than horsepower, with defenders who will spend tonight repositioning their forces and watching the weather forecast with intense focus. The strategic picture sharpens into this reality. Pokrovsk is not symbolic. It is a fulcrum. More assaults will come, more claims will be made, more maps will be updated at 3 in the morning while snow taps against windows and somebody's coffee goes cold. What matters is the math of losses and the geometry of supply. Today, that math favored the defense. Today, the geometry punished a column that trusted weather to hide it and found weather turning against it instead. The question that generals and diplomats are asking tonight is simply this. When a logistics city becomes a battlefield, who adapts faster? The side that thinks in squares on a map, or the side that thinks in minutes, meters, and mud? The answer now unfolding in Pokrovsk will help write the next critical chapter of this ongoing war. Thank you for watching.